Hello and welcome to QED Stata 5 from part S5. Now here we are in Sindh, a province in Pakistan, and we're looking at, again, at values and opinions this time. And this was based on real research done by Gallup in Pakistan, where they asked young adults in various provinces, and the results I was looking at are from Sindh. And they're looking at this question of trust, which is also in the World Values Survey. So they're asking people, how much do you trust people that you meet for the first time on this scale, from not at all up to completely? And they split it in various ways. One of them was rural and urban areas of the province. So first start, we need to grab the data in and recode location in the usual way. So let's just look at the code for that. So you can find the do file working on here. Okay, so as you see, I've at the end of that stuff on Indonesia, I've just saved that Indonesia file because we changed that. And now we're going to put in these commands to start work on the new data file here. So I put a few stars in to show that I've changed data sets. Onto the Pakistan worksheet, import that, and then what we need to do is, as before, well, let's have a look at what it looks like. But as you see, when you import this, have a quick look at it, then again you have this thing where it's a string. So a very similar situation where you've got a number here which is easy to work with, and these things are just typed in as letters. So we want to convert that from typed in as letters to a numeric variable. The bad news is it's a pain because we've just gone through that whole process. The good news is we've gone through that whole process. So all you need to do is to grab a hold of that, copy it, paste it in down here, tweak the names of things and add bits if you need to add them. And with very little work, you can quickly arrive at this. So you see it's pretty much the same stuff with the names changed. So look what you've done. Just rename location to a temporary thing with strings, and then generate, now location has been renamed, so I can generate a new variable called location with 1 if it's rural, then replace the values in that same one with 2 if it's urban, define a value label, so 1's going to be rural, 2's going to be urban, and then I'm also going to define some labels, because when we look at the data here, what on earth does the 1, 2, 3, 4 mean? Oh, I don't know. So I'm going to label that. So 1 is not at all, 2 is not very much, and so on. And then apply those two labels, so location names and trust values, and then finally get rid of the one that's the old string version, so you don't get confused with that. So let's just do those. You should see what's happening back in the data editor. So it kind of looks similar, except now this is labelled instead of numbers. The numbers are still stored in there, but it's showing us the labels so we understand what these means. And these numbers are still stored here, but it's telling us what these numbers means, because this is already numbers. So that's been replaced by numbers and coded. This has been had the labels put on top of the number codes. Okay, great so far. Now we're going to do some graphing. So you can just copy and paste this into your do file or into the command file if you're using that, into command line if you're not using the file. And we're going to make this clustered bar chart. It's staying visible. So it kind of looks quite long, but hopefully you can see what each part is doing. That graph is a general command to generate all kinds of graphs. Bar says, okay, this is going to be a bar chart this time. It's kind of a bit strange the way it's set out. Count means it's counting how many people said each value of the trust variable, the first thing in this list. The one that's a bit obscure is this thing here, which says this is the one we're counting on to concentrate to both to colour by and also to count, and also to work out percentages. So it's counting how many people gave each answer here, and then this says per means instead of giving the actual number, turn it into a percentage. So this says split it up by each answer, 1, 2, 3, 4. This says split that up again by the rural urban. So if you didn't put that in, you just get a bar chart showing how many people said 1, 2, 3, 4. This means it's going to be split up between the two locations, urban and rural. These are the ones I say are a bit complicated to understand, especially this one, which just tells it to concentrate on this one for the colouring and the percentages. A bit weird that. These look long, but they're obviously fairly straightforward. That's just the title, and that's the subtitle. You put whatever you want in there. Okay, I like it when I do a long explanation of a stata command and then I execute it and that doesn't work. That works because that's not the right screen. Hey, wait a minute, a graph should be appearing, nothing's happening. This is real time. Wait, oh, there it is. It's just appeared behind all the other windows. There's the actual graph. I didn't fake that. That's actually made it. So there's the graph. So it comes out reasonably attractive. You can experiment. If you do help bar graph in stata in the viewer, it leads you through endless options on how to change all the stuff about the color, the width, the texture, everything, the extra labels. You can explore it endlessly. It's quite a steep learning curve making graphs that nice in stata, and I must confess that I often resort to just double clicking it and then going into the editor. You can then change various things about the way it looks. In here by manually, but making it come up looking beautiful the first time just by the command you put in takes a long time to get right. But I've given you a few things to start you off there anyway in that command. But hopefully, in terms of what we're trying to achieve, in terms of comparing these things, so if we go on to question 5, does the chart show that there's a difference between, oh, it's not off the screen there. Does that chart show you there is any difference between rural and urban areas, between young people in the sample and the population? Well, certainly in the sample, if you look at the ones that say trust completely, much higher percentage, almost 20% of the rural people are saying, yeah, meet someone for the first time, you trust them completely, which is quite surprising. In the urban areas, very small. Again, more people saying somewhat trust in their rural areas compared to fewer than 30% in urban areas who trust someone somewhat. Not very much. That's the biggest answer for the urban area people. And then not at all. Almost 25% of urban people say don't trust someone at all when you first meet them, compared to only 10% of rural areas. So on the face of this, it does look as though there's a difference. However, we can say that in the sample there is a difference, because the numbers are in front of us. These numbers give us the full details on that sample. So you can see that responses on trust are certainly higher among the rural than they are among the urban in the sample. The population, it might not. Yeah. It indicates it is, but there could be some sampling error going on there, which means that just by chance we happen to select really trusting people in the rural area and really suspicious people in the urban area just by chance. It could be in the wider region there's no difference between the trust in these two groups. So that's why we need then to move on to a test, which is the next thing we'll do. So use the independent samples t-test to evaluate the evidence provided. Okay, so first of all, while we're getting the code, think about what the hypothesis would be for this. And before carrying it out, I might also just look at some descriptive statistics. There's the command. So first of all, just descriptives, looking at the mean of trust between these two different locations, then doing the t-test. Before carrying out the t-test, you should think about, well, what's the null hypothesis would be that the mean level of trust, or the mean responses given on the level of trust, is the same in rural areas as it is in urban areas. And the alternative would be that there's a difference in the level of trust between the rural and urban areas, because we didn't start off trying to show that one or the other was different, although it seems it suggests that looking at descriptives. So let's just carry these two commands out. Let's see what that's going to give us as data. So the comparison here was, it seems that the mean, just as we thought, the mean is higher in the rural area, mean response. But is this significant? So here we need the two samples test, and the difference in means we've found is 0.5 between that and that, which seems quite large. And in fact, it's telling us that if we take a null hypothesis that the means are the same in each area, in other words, the difference between the means is 0, we can reject that because this is well under 1%, similar to the previous one actually, well under 1%. So we can reject at the 1% significance level the null hypothesis and accept the alternative hypothesis, which is there is a difference between the mean responses on trust between the urban and rural areas. So that does suggest that what we see before us in that graph is indeed, to some extent, that's representative of what's happening in the population. So it seems there is evidence here that in the population in Sindh, youth in the rural areas have got higher responses to trust than youth in the urban areas. Okay, so next we're off across to Central Asia, to rural Tajikistan to look at internet access, but for now, thank you for watching.